Well, here we are. Thoughts from the office. Redneck Sprite Outdoors. I'm going to do a short little video to both the wildlife control industry, but also to the fur trapper. And I want to talk about cage traps. But as I'm talking about cage traps, I want you trappers out there who are in states that you can use killer traps on the land. Or I want you to think about states where you can use cable restraints or snares. Because even though I'm talking cage traps, the same mindset goes into each and every one of those tools. And theoretically, you could even throw it into a foot trap. And this is where a lot of folks get confused, because what I find as I'm talking to folks, we tend to we tend to categorize and isolate and put everything into a category, and you can't come out of that category. My dog-proof strategies, we call it the advanced dog-proof systems, are based off of me in the 70s and the 80s when I could foot trap. Now, we lost the foot trap in 1984. We couldn't use them past 86. But the dog-proof that I use today is still based on the principles that I used foot trapping. Many of my snaring, and I use the word snaring, but we're using cable restraints for upland. But many of my snaring mindsets came from the days that I used foot traps. And I just expanded the mindset, and instead of setting a trap in the ground for the animal to step in, I use the same principles to hang a snare for the animal to put his head into. Now, that's probably confusing to a lot of you folks, and if it is, well, I'm going to tell you to come to South Jersey Trapping and Snaring School, and a lot of that stuff will be explained to you. But let's get back to what I'm talking about with the box trap or cage strap. Everybody knows I use the 3 and 4 baiting strategy. 3 baits, 4 lures. And the first thing everybody's going to say is, my gosh, how much bait and lure are you using? The truthful answer is less than you are using 1 bait in the back of that trap. Combined bait for me, using 3 baits per cage strap, is probably less than a half a can of sardines. Combined lure usage, using 4 lures, is probably less than a quarter to a half ounce combined. And that's saying I'm using a lot. I may probably only use less than that. So when I'm talking to you about cage straps, everybody thinks cage strap success comes from the bait that you use. And the truth of the matter is, it's not. Now, I want you to use my baits and lures. Redneck Sprite Outdoors, baits and lures. I want you to use them. I would not be a commercial bait manufacturer if I didn't want you to use my baits and lures. But the truth of the matter is, my baits and lures are taste baits and lures that I make. The only difference between my baits and lures, which are taste baits and lures, and your taste baits and lures that you go to the grocery store and grab, is mine last longer. That's simple. My baits and lures are going to last 2 weeks in a trap. Your Tasty Cake Oatmeal Raisin Bar in 90-degree heat and ants is going to last 1 or 2 days. It's that simple. Your cat food in 90-degree heat, your wet cat food or your sardines in 90-degree heat is going to be appealing to a raccoon for maybe 2, maybe 3 days before it starts to spoil. And people say, well, I can do that in the wintertime. Yeah, you can. You can take that and have 2 weeks or 3 weeks of that cat food in your trap for 2 to 3 weeks in the wintertime. Why? Because it's cold. And the animals are hungry. But 90-degree weather, 100-degree weather, the animals aren't as hungry and the food spoils. And when they're not as hungry, they're more picky on what they want to eat. So, that's the only difference between your taste baits that you buy at the grocery store and my taste baits that I make. So, my 3 and 4 baiting system works whether it's your store-bought stuff or my manufactured, commercially manufactured stuff. So it's not the bait and the lure that causes the success. It's the baiting strategy with whatever bait you're using. Trap presentation and trap position. Trap location. That's it. There is no secret. The reason people do not or not able to successfully and continuously trap animals with a baited cage trap is simply because they don't understand those 4 things. That's simple. I was talking to an old boy the other day, and we was talking about setting up cages and what have you. And he says, I prefer to blind set. And I said, so do I. Matter of fact, 90% of my sets are blind sets. That's right, you heard me right. 90% of my cage traps that I set are blind sets. The only difference is I bait my blind sets. I am setting that cage, and if you come to the South Jersey Trapping and Snaring School, yeah, there's a plug there. But if you come, that is why you're going to see 3 to 4 hours worth of me talking cage trap methods, mindsets, thoughts, whatever you want to call it, 3 to 4 hours. I am more particular in my cage trapping than I would be in my foot trapping, and that I am in my snaring. Every cage I set, when you listen to me talk, where is the animal coming from? Where is the animal going to? The first place I want the raccoon or skunk or aardvark or hippopotamus to come to is where? The front of the trap. I don't want him coming to the side of the trap. I don't want him coming to the back of the trap. I want him coming to the front of the trap. Where's he coming from? Where is the wind direction coming from? What is the sight picture and sight line of the animal coming to the cage strap. Oh, but Josie, you say that a lot about cable restraints and snares. Absolute. Where do you think I got it from? To talk about cable restraints and snares. Sight line, sight picture. How far back does an animal figure out where he's going to go and where he's going to go? A lot further than you and I think they do. How far back do you think about where you're going to go and where you're going to put your feet at? 30, 40 feet ahead? Your sight line, 30, 40, 50 feet sometimes. Your sight picture, what do you see there? What's causing you to go to that spot? Listen, I'm using these same mindsets in my cage strapping techniques as I do setting my cable restraints and snares. And that I did with my foot traps back in the 70s and the 80s. Listen, there's a reason why coyote trappers talk about walkthrough sets. Think about that for a second. There's a reason why coyote trappers talk about walkthrough sets. Josie, you think too much. Yeah, I did. But once I learned it, I don't think about it no more. It's just muscle memory. It's second nature. It's subconscious. Do I believe in posi sets? Absolutely. What is a posi set? A posi set is nothing more than a blind set that's forcing the animal into the trap. But I can do the same thing where a posi set can and will, in certain situations, create a negative in some of the 20%ers, 80-20 concept. A posi set, forcing them into the trap, can create a negative in some of the 20%ers. That's why you hear me talk about posi setting without pressure. I give them a way out if they want to. I don't box them in. I don't make them feel confined. Animals aren't smart enough to know that. Bull crap. They do too. They know exactly if they're blocked in or not. Posi set without pressure. The same thing. What do you do, Jonesy, when you posi set? Whether I posi set or I posi set without pressure, I bait and lure that trap. Why would you do that? To give them another reason to go in case they are a little bit on the hesitant side. You see, I don't leave things to chance if I can. Now, I do a lot because I'm just an old dumb redneck, and sometimes I can't spell, and sometimes I can't, well, no, I can never spell, and I can never use grammar in the proper way, and I sure don't have good English. But I always try to see what I got to do before I see I got to do it. Is that making sense to you? Listen, people, if you're not being successful with a baited cage trap, it's because you're not putting the effort into it. That's simple. Get pissed at me all you want. That's the truth of the matter. You're being lazy and you don't want to put the effort in to learn what that animal wants to do and let them do it. You're trying to make that animal do what you want it to do, and you know, I learned a long time ago. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. I have horses, you know. You can lead him to water, but you can't make him drink. But if you gave him a little bit of salt, well, son of a gun, he's going to drink. Same thing I'm doing with the cage trap. I'm understanding what that animal wants to do. Thus, blind setting. What's that mean? I'm putting that trap there in the place where that animal is going to go, whether there's a trap there or not. And when I put that trap there, I'm putting that trap down in the location and the position that he's going to walk into that cage anyway. Whoop, conibear, 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 snare, cable restraint, blind foot set. I'm putting it there that he's going to walk in anyway, and 80% of them are going to do it. But in case one of those critters that comes by, or the first critter that comes by, is not an 80%er, but it's a 20%er, I'm going to put bait and lure in there to entice it to want to go into that trap, rather than me trying to make him go in that trap. Well, I'm going to leave it there. I'll catch you later. Redneck's Pride Outdoors. Thoughts from the office.